Hey guys, good evening. Guys, if you are able to see my screen, just type S in the chat box so that we can get started. Okay, thanks for the confirmation, guys. So today the topic is all about interfaces. So yesterday I have covered about the abstract modifier, and apart from the abstract modifier, I also covered about the abstraction hoops concept. All the hoops concepts are completed now, and another Java concept that will also add up to this abstraction hoops concept is interfaces concept that I'm going to cover in the today's session. Okay, the modifiers and interfaces in that abstract modifier and interfaces will fall into the abstraction hoops concept. The remaining, anyhow, you have understood the abstraction hoops concept yesterday. So interfaces is all about full abstraction. Okay, let me open these notes. Meanwhile, let me open these notes here. I'll open these notes. So yesterday I completed all the modifiers. That is the last modifier was abstract non-access modifier, which is all about partial implementation or partial abstraction. I explained you all the stuff like, all the details related to the abstract non-access modifier. Today, we'll go for the full abstraction. Interfaces are all about what, guys? Interfaces are all about full abstraction. Everyone type in the chat box, full abstraction. Interfaces means full abstraction. Interfaces are generally meant for full abstraction, or generally I'm saying, okay? Interfaces are generally meant for full abstraction. Full abstraction, which is nothing but zero implementation, I'll explain what if you create an interface, and inside the interface, if you create some members, like in the members of the class, like you create some variables and methods inside the interfaces, can we do some implementation or not? They are generally all about interfaces are generally about full abstraction or zero implementers in general speaking. But in the latest versions of Java, we can implement few methods. We can implement few type of methods inside an interface. But there is a reason, guys. Okay, there is a reason why we have to implement such kind of methods. There's a different concept altogether. But interfaces are generally meant for what? Generally meant for full abstraction, that is zero implementation. Generally they are actually meant for full abstraction or zero implementation. But in the latest versions of Java, okay, we have some kind of methods that got introduced in the latest versions of Java that can be created inside the interfaces, which can contain some implementation. But when we have to use such methods, I'm going to cover in this session. But still, our intention of the interfaces is for full abstraction and zero implementation, despite of these methods. Despite of the methods that are newly introduced in the latest versions of Java, the purpose of the interfaces is all about full abstraction or zero implementation. Okay, even though we can implement the method, still the purpose is full abstraction or zero implementation. But there are some methods which got introduced that I'm going to cover anyhow in this session. Okay. Okay. So how to create an interface then? In the last session, the yesterday session or last session, I covered about the abstract modifier or abstract classes. You see, the next level of abstract classes is the interfaces, guys. Okay. Abstract classes are partial abstraction, right? I covered it yesterday. Okay. Partial abstraction or partial implementation, you can say. Partial implementation. But coming to the interfaces, they are generally meant for the full abstraction, that is zero implementation. None of the methods should be implemented generally. But there are some methods introduced in the latest versions of Java which can be implemented. But what is the reason when we have to implement such kind of methods? Okay, that I'm going to cover in this session. Fine. Now, there's one more thing that you have to understand. You have to understand the difference between a class and interface. Class and interface. Okay. If you create a class, which keyword you generally use, guys? To create a class, what is the keyword you will use? What is the keyword in Java we have for creating a class? Yes, class keyword. Okay, class followed by the class name. We generally write like this, right? Similarly, interface also same thing. What is the keyword we have for interface? Do we have to use the same class keyword in Java to create the interface? Do you think? No. We have to use a keyword known as interface keyword, interface followed by interface name. Okay. Then the starting of the interface and ending of the interface. Starting of the interface and ending of the interface. Class name, interface name. Okay. Class name, interface name. Fine. Okay. So let's create an interface, guys. In Eclipse IDE, there's a separate option for creating an interface. Interface will be automatically created. Similar way, the Eclipse IDE create a class, automatically writes the code for the class, right? Similar way, it can create a code for the interface, okay? So here, let's write about create a new package just for organizing the stuff, interface pack, I'll say. And in that interface pack, if I want to create an interface, generally, if I have to create a class, I have to right click on the package and select new and select the class. Otherwise, I have to select the interface. If you want to select the interface, you have to select the interface option. If you want to select the class, you have to select the class option. Either class option or interface option, you have to select. Which option I have to select, guys?
Interface.
Interface option. Right click new interface. The moment I select interface, you see, instead of new Java class option, dialog will come in Eclipse IDE. Instead of the new Java interface will come. Okay. And here you have to give the interface name. I'll just give the, sorry, let me create it again. Right click new interface. I'll just give the name of the interface as, let's say we have Reserve Bank of India. We have Reserve Bank of India. If you come to India, right, we have this Reserve Bank, RBI, which generally takes off all the financial matters in the country. So banks come under the RBI, okay? Banks are some financial institutions that have to run in our country according to the rules and regulations of India. That is RBI, okay? RBI organization. RBI is a Reserve Bank of India organization, which actually defines the rules and regulations of how a bank should work in our country. Okay, only defines it. Will RBI run a bank, or RBI will decide like how to run a bank? Will RBI run a bank, or will RBI just decide that how the bank should run in our country? What do you say, guys?
RBI runs to bank. How to run bank?
RBI is an authority which will run the bank, which has its own bank, and it will run all the deposits. It will take the deposits, and it will run, or how to run will be decided. How to run will be decided. Correct. How to run. Okay. The process. If a particular bank need to be started in our country, in India, let's assume RBI is an organization, okay, which will decide that how the bank should run, what interest rate should bank charge, okay, give as loan, okay, all these things, okay. So, and RBI is something that prints currency and all, and then distributes to the bank, so that banks will use that currency to do the transactions in the market, okay. So, for such kind of definition, do we need to do any implementation here? We are just to, let's say RBI is trying to create this bank interface. Will the RBI has to specify? Will the RBI has to implement that implement the process of a bank, or just define how the bank should run? Just guidelines should be given, right? RBI should just give the guidelines. Yes, for you are right. RBI should just give the guidelines for the bank. That guidelines should not be implemented by the RBI. Okay, the one who is creating this bank interface is nothing but the RBI, who just have to define it but not to implement it. Okay, just give the directions or guidelines. That's it. Okay, click on finish. I'm giving the name of the interface as bank. Click on finish. Now RBI will not implement any methods here or members or something here. RBI will only give the guidance. Okay, guidelines or directions it will give of how the bank should run in the country. Okay, so let's say bank is such kind of thing. So RBI, let's assume that RBI, Reserve Bank of India, is creating this interface. It will just define, guys. It will just specify the guidelines, but it will not implement the process. Okay, it will not implement the process of actually collecting the money from the customers, actually depositing the money, actually transferring the money. Okay, or actually collecting the interest rates and all the stuff. RBI will not do. RBI will just define or create the guidelines for the bank. For example, there can be some variables. There can be inside a class. What are the different members we can create generally? Inside a class, what are the different members we can create? What are the main members that we can create inside a class? Generally, variables and methods. Variables and methods, right? Yes, correct. Whatever you have typed in the chat box is 100% right. Variables and methods are the main two members of the class. The main two members of the class are variables and methods. Interface also, we can create some variables and methods, guys. Let's create some variable. For example, string account type 1 and put a semicolon. What is happening? The moment I put account type 1, what is happening? Guys, what is happening? I'm getting a compiler error saying that the blank final field. Did I mention final here? Before this particular variable, did I mention final here? It's saying that the blank final field account type may not have been initialized saying, but I didn't mention final. That means by default, the variables inside an interface are which type? Final type. That is one thing. Final type by default. Okay. Even though you don't mention the final modifier here, if you specify also, no problem. If you don't specify also, their variables are by default. Which type of variables will be created inside the interface by default? Final variables. Already explained about the final modifier in the last few sessions, right? As part of the modifiers topic, I covered the final modifier for you. Final modifier is one such kind of modifier, okay, that can be specified before the variables, okay, whose, which have to be initialized in the same line they are created, and also the value of that particular variables, they are no more variables, they are constants, okay, they are no more variables, they are constants, cannot be updatable. They are constant means they cannot be updated, okay. So first it is asking us to initialize this variable in the same line. Okay, I'll initialize. I'll just name this as savings, account type 1 as savings. Okay, RBI is mentioning that account, there should be some type of accounts like savings account should be there for the user. It's of final type. At same time, apart from the final type, okay, can you update this value? If I create some method here, and can I update the value of this? Can I update the from savings to some other thing in any other methods? Once I initialize, can I update the value of this particular thing? It's a constant. Final means it cannot be updatable. Okay, because it's a final type by default. Final by default. Okay, variables inside the interface are final by default. Not only final, they are also static by default. They're also what, guys? Static also. Final and static by default. Even though there are no modifiers mentioned before the variables inside the interface, these variables inside the interface are final and static by default. Everyone type in the chat box final and static by default. Both. They belong to the interface memory. You see, static stuff belong to which memory? Class memory, right? In general, if you create a static variable inside a class, you generally say that static variable belongs to which memory? Static variable or static method belongs to which memory generally? In class memory. But here we don't have a class, we have an interface. So static variables will belong to which memory now? Class memory or interface memory in this case? In this case, interface memory. These static variables by default final and static type, guys. Variables inside the interface are final and static type. They belong to the interface memory, not the class memory, because they are created inside the interface. In place of the class, we got the interface, and the interface purpose is to full abstraction. Zero implementation is the actual purpose of creating an interface. When developers will create an interface for achieving the full abstraction or zero implementation, they will go for the interfaces. Such kind of situations will come in real time where RBI want to create an interface like bank, and it just want to give the guidelines, but it don't want to implement anything. In such kind of cases, RBI will create an interface instead of a class, because that's all full abstraction. That is, all the complexity of the code should not be implemented by the interface. Everything should be, okay, abstracted. That is hidden from the interface. Just definition should be there. Just guidelines should be there. Okay, like that. Just definition of the stuff should be there. Similarly, if I create one more thing, string, it's better that you give this account type as it's a constant, right? It's better to mention the account type like account like this. Okay, account 1 minute, account type _1. This is a better way of writing, guys. Okay, this is a better way of writing the naming convention for the constants. I already explained about the naming convention for the constants, right? Variables are lower camel case. Variable naming convention is lower camel case. But this is which case, guys? Can anyone remember what is the type of the case that we have to give for the? Yes, upper snake case or capital snake case, whatever you call. That's fine. Okay. Until you understand that is fine. Okay. Upper snake case or capital snake case, whatever you say. Okay. Generally upper snake case we generally call. And again, whenever you are creating another constant type, which are static and final type by default, you just give account type 2 here and just mention that as current account. Let's fine. Okay. Account type 2 is current. It's better way of writing the code, guys. People will understand that you know the logic, you know the naming conventions and all. Okay. When you know, you have to implement final and static by default. This is also final and static by default. To access this particular constants of this particular variables or constants of this particular interface, I can use a, do I have to create an object, guys? Do you have to create an object to access the variables or constants of this particular interface, whatever you call? Do you have to create an object? Not required, because they belong to the bank interface, and using the bank name only I can access these variables. Okay, using the bank interface only we can access constant and type of variables inside this interface. Okay, no need to create an object. Fine. Next thing is, two sample variables I created, guys. I don't want to create hundreds of variables here because bank will have a lot of variables or a lot of constants, whatever you say here. Okay, constant type of variables. Now coming to the methods, I'll create a method here, public void. What will be general operations of a bank, guys, that RBI can define? Okay, open account. Open account is one method. If I try to create a body, what is happening? If I try to create a body for this open account, what is happening? Did I mention any abstract modifier here? Did I mention any abstract modifier here? Then why I'm getting an error here? Abstract methods do not specify body. Why I'm getting this kind of compiler error? Even though I didn't mention abstract modifier, public abstract. Did I mention like this? I didn't mention any abstract modifier here, but still the error is coming saying that this particular method is an abstract method, does not specify body it's saying. What does it mean, guys? By default what? By default, methods inside the interface are by default what type? Methods inside the interface are by default which type?
Abstract methods.
Abstract type. Okay. Abstract by default. Methods inside the interface are abstract by default. Methods inside the interface are abstract by default. They cannot contain the method body. General methods, okay, if you talk about the general methods, all the general methods are by default abstract methods, but there are some methods which got introduced in the latest versions of Java where we can implement inside the interface still, even though interfaces are all about full abstraction, zero implementation, but there are some interfaces, there are like some methods, kind of different type of methods that got introduced in Java where we can implement them. Okay, we can implement the methods. Okay, but general methods are all about the abstract by default methods. Okay, so like this I can create any number of methods, guys. Public void deposit money. I cannot have the method body here by default. All these methods are by default abstract. Okay, I cannot have the method body, only the declaration should be there, definition of the method should be there. They should be end with a semicolon, no opening brace and no curly braces. Okay, no curly braces and no kind of thing. Okay, public void transfer money. You see, no method body cannot exist. You see, like this I cannot create. Only definition of the methods can exist because all the methods by default in the interface are by default abstract modifier by default. Okay, public void withdraw money. Some methods I'll create, guys, that's okay. Withdraw money I'll create. Okay, put a semicolon here. All the methods are by default abstract by default in interface. Okay, clear about the interface, guys? How the interface will achieve full abstraction is clear for you. By default, all the methods interface can contain implemented methods. In the latest versions of Java, there are some type of methods that we can implement, but the thing here is, but the intention is like full abstraction. Okay, they should not contain the method body is the intention of the interface. Okay, but still there are some situations where we have to use some methods in real Java programming where we can have some methods which can have some implementation. What type of methods? General methods cannot have implementation, guys. That is one thing you have to remember. General methods inside the interface will not contain the method body. Okay, they are abstract by default. There are some methods like default and static methods. Everyone type in the chat box. What type of methods can be implemented in the interface? Default and static methods. What type of methods can be implemented inside an interface? Default and static methods. Everyone type in the chat box. The methods that can be implemented in the interface are default and static methods. Normal general methods are abstract methods by default. They cannot be implemented inside the interface because interface is all about full abstraction, zero implementation. Hence, normal variables, normal methods should not have the implementation. Okay, they are about zero implementation and full abstraction. But there are some kind of methods we have in latest versions of Java that got introduced in the latest versions of Java. They are called as default and static methods, which can be implemented. What is the reason for implementation is I'll tell you later. Okay, I'll explain that later. But for now, I created an interface, guys. Who will implement this abstract methods of this interface? Who has to implement? If the interface is not going to implement this abstract methods, then who has to implement? Yes, here also same thing as child class. Like we can create a child class for a class, we can also create a child class for an interface, guys. Okay, how to create a child class for an interface? I'll try to create a child class here itself, guys. Okay, I can go to another file also. In the same Java file also we can create, guys, no issues. Okay, I can create a separate Java file or in the same Java file. How to create another class? Name of the class HDFC Bank. Okay, HDFC Bank, class HDFC Bank. How to make this HDFC Bank a child class of this bank interface? What is the keyword I have to use? What is the keyword I have to use? Implement keyword. Okay, if this particular class is a if want to become a child class of another class, if that parent is also a class, in that case we have to use extends keyword. But here parent is not a class, it is an interface. If this particular class want to become a child class of the interface, whether we have to use extends keyword or implements keyword. Don't write extends. This will give you an error. You see, implements, extends. If I write, you see, I'll get the type bank cannot be the super class of the HDFC Bank. Super class must be a bank class. Here bank is not a class. Super class is a interface. Hence you cannot make this bank extends. Okay, you have to use implements keyword. Everyone type in the chat box implements keyword so that you can remember. Here we should not write the extends keyword. Whenever you want to make a particular class a child class of an interface instead of a class, we have to use implements keyword in place of the extends keyword. We have to use implements keyword in place of the extends keyword. Everyone type in the chat box implements keyword. Okay, implements keyword. Here we should not use extends keyword for class. For a class becoming a child class of another super class, then extends keyword. But for a class to become a child class of an interface, implements keyword. Okay, that's you have to remember. That's the difference between. Okay, here as part of the difference of the class, if a particular class want to become a child class should use extends keyword here. Extends keyword here to make a class a child class of another class. We have to use extends keyword. But here, which keyword we have to use? Child class of interface should use implements keyword. Implements keyword. That you have to understand. That is another difference. Okay, there's another difference. Like many differences you can provide, but these are high level differences. Okay, and here I'm already getting an error. In the case of HDFC Bank class, I'm getting an error. Why I'm getting an error? Because the parent interface contains some abstract methods which are not implemented. Then what I have to do, guys, to implement this particular methods of the parent interface, what I have to do? I have to override these methods or not? Do I have to override these methods as I have done with the abstract methods of the abstract class? Also, I have did the same thing, right? Here also we have to do the same thing. Okay, let's override these methods, guys. Either you can type it manually. You see, over the mouse on the HDFC Bank, and here it is saying one of the abstract method open account should be implemented is saying. Let's try to implement that. If you want to type it manually, you can do that. Open account, and here in the open account, here write down @override. The moment I say @override, okay, I can implement this, guys. System.out.println, opening account opened in HDFC Bank. Account opened in HDFC Bank. And here only one method I override it inside all these abstract methods. Only one method got overridden. Whatever the remaining three methods, they are not overridden yet. That's the reason we are still getting the error. The type HDFC Bank must implement the inherited abstract methods. This time open account is implemented, right? So it's going to the next method, another method. It's asking us to implement the withdraw method. Okay, let's try to implement the withdraw method. Public void withdraw money method. I'll try to override @override. Just to see whether we are overriding or not. We can, if you are not getting any error, means we are successfully overriding it. Okay, the abstract methods of the parent interface we are successfully overriding if you are not getting any errors. Okay, this is optional anyhow, but it's up to you whether you want to. Okay, amount withdrawn from HDFC Bank. Amount withdrawn from HDFC Bank. Like that, after that error is still not gone. Now it's saying that compiler has changed a bit. Earlier it came open account. Next it came withdraw money method. It asked us to implement. Now it's asking us to implement deposit money. I'll try to implement the deposit money. Here I'll say public void deposit money. I'll try to override to see whether I'm successfully, overriding or not, properly doing the writing the code or not. Override. Okay. No error miss. Yes, we are overriding the correct abstract method. Okay. Amount deposited into HDFC Bank. Okay, HDFC Bank, like that we can write. Here RBI is only giving the guidelines here. It's not implementing or running a bank. But here HDFC Bank is one of the bank which is following the guidelines of the RBI. Okay, which are mentioned in this bank interface. Okay, simple example, in real time when we have to use interface, if some people will ask you, then you can give the example of this bank interface and the child classes of that bank interface like HDFC Bank, ICICI Bank, okay, SBI Bank, all the bank classes you can create, any number of methods you can create, and their own implementations you can implement. Okay, they can have their own implementation. Account opened in HDFC Bank, there in other class ICICI Bank, account opened in ICICI Bank, you will write the code like that. Okay, every bank will have its own implementation. Yes.
Sorry to disturb your flow. Like what? Can I know that what is the definition? Should be like a simple way.
What is
of
it?
inter-
What is the definition
Definition
of
of
interface?
interface in a simple keyword.
Interface, what we can say that interface is all about full abstraction, we can say, for understanding purpose. But if you want a real definition, we can go here. Okay. So because I don't remember definitions and all, because I generally worry about the use cases and all. Okay. So interfaces definition in Java, you just type here, you'll get that. Okay. Interfaces is a reference type similar to the class that can contain only constants. Constant means final and static type. Method signatures. Okay, so they are not giving a simple. Let's go with the conclusion and see what is an interface here. We don't have a separate definition for interface, but whenever someone asks about interface, right, we have to describe the interface for them. I don't think we can give a single definition for an interface. I don't think that will be the proper case. Okay, even ChatGPT is not giving. You can see that I asked about the interface definition in Java, but it has not given the interface definition. It's all explaining about the interface only. Okay, you have to explain about the interface. Okay, interface is a reference type similar to class. Okay, which contains static final constants and normal methods inside the interfaces are by default abstract methods, which will not contain the method body. And next thing is that it's all about full abstraction, zero implementation. But in the latest versions of Java, we have static and default methods which can be implemented inside the interface. That's what is the interface definition. Okay. In Java, an interface specifies the behavior of a class by providing an abstract type. As one of the Java core concept, abstraction. You see, there's no particular definition for the interfaces. Okay, there's no particular definition for an interface. Okay, I cannot even give, and even Google or ChatGPT is also not able to give the definition. Whenever someone asks you what is an interface means, you have to explain what is an interface. That's what is the definition. Clear? Clear? There's no particular definition for an interface. Is that clear?
Clear.
Just explain about whatever I'm explaining, right? That you have to explain. Okay. Whatever I'm explaining, you have to explain. Okay. Interface contains 1 minute. Interface contains constants and abstract methods by default.
That can be overrated.
Yes, that can be overridden in the child class. That is not a definition actually. Anyhow, if you go with abstract classes also, abstract methods have to be overridden by the child classes. Okay, that's not a definition part. But interfaces, you have to explain means you have to say that interfaces will contain constants and abstract methods. Okay, normal variables inside the interface are constants, which are static and final by default, and normal methods inside the interface are abstract methods by default. Okay, they are abstract type, and the purpose of the interface is for full abstraction, zero implementation. You have to explain. Okay, that's what you can explain. Okay, that's nothing but the definition only or explanation you can give. There is no particular single definition for interface, But this is what is explanation you have to give. Clear? Cyclone, is that clear? Cyclone.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But understanding is very important. Okay. Definitions, no one will ask you. But explanation is very important. They will try to check whether you have the understanding, because definitions, concepts are gone long back. Okay. So no one is expecting you to give a hardcore, definition, straightforward definition for everything. You don't have to give. Whenever someone asks you some interview questions on Java, right, you have to explain about what is that concept all about. Okay. So, but definitions will make our job easy in understanding and concluding what exactly they are, but that's okay. But coming to the interface, there's no particular definition. You have to give the proper explanation of what exactly is an interface. Okay, we have to use interface keyword for creating an interface. It looks like a class, but here we have to use interface keyword. And next thing is constants. The third thing is like they will contain abstract methods. Okay, by default, normal methods inside the interface are abstract type, and the child classes should uses implements keyword instead of extends keyword for implementing the or overriding the abstract methods of the parent interface. Okay, like that you have to keep explaining whatever you know about the interface without any stop. Fine. You see one last method they are asking us to implement, that is transfer money. Public void transfer money. Transfer money. Here write down system.out.println. Money transferred from HDFC Bank. Okay, money transferred from HDFC Bank. Like that, I'll write some methods, guys. The moment I write some methods, you see there all the abstract methods of the parent interfaces are once they are implemented, right? By overriding, once they are implemented, right? Once they are implemented, right? Then once they are implemented, they will be gone. Okay. What will happen if I don't implement all the methods? That I'll explain later. But for now, let's assume that all the methods got implemented. You know that, right? HDFC Bank is a class, one of the class which is implementing this parent interface known as bank. As part of that, all the methods of this bank interface are overridden here in the child class. Okay, that's it. Now, tell me guys, can you create an object for an interface? Can you create an object for an interface? Can you create an object for an interface? The answer is no. The answer is no. Similarly, yesterday I covered there's something about abstract classes, right? For abstract classes, can you create an object? Can you instantiate or create object for an abstract classes? No. Similarly for interface also, because abstract classes are all about partial implementation or partial abstraction. For partial abstraction only, objects cannot be created. Then how can you create an object for full abstraction here? Interfaces are all about full abstraction or zero implementation. For such kind of interface, can you create object? If it is not possible for abstract classes, it should not also be not possible for interfaces. So I'll try to create a class here and try to create an object for the interface and show you that what type of error you are going to get. With the main method, I'll create the demo class and see that what is going to happen. Here, if I try to create an object for the interface like new, using the new keyword and bank interface name, if I put a semicolon here, you see immediately I'm going to get an error saying that cannot instantiate the type bank. Whether the item that is an abstract class or an interface, for both of the items, you cannot create the object. Guys, remember that objects cannot be created for interface. Everyone type in the chat box. Objects cannot be created for the interfaces. Everyone type in the chat box. Objects cannot be created for interfaces. Everyone type in the chat box. I want everyone to type that objects cannot be created for interfaces. Similar way, object cannot be created for abstract classes, which are all about partial implementation or partial abstraction. Similarly, objects cannot be created for interfaces, which are all about full abstraction or zero implementation. Okay. So objects cannot be directly created for the interfaces. But if you want to access the members of this particular interface, then how to access? For example, especially these abstract methods of this interface, if you want to access, then you have to create an object for the child class. For interfaces, you cannot create objects. Okay. Objects cannot be created for an interface. Okay. Objects cannot be created for an interface, but objects can be created for the child classes, which are implementing the abstract methods of this interface. Okay. So how to create objects for the child classes? Here HDFC Bank, right? New HDFC Bank. HDFC is equal to new HDFC Bank. Like this, I can create an object for the HDFC Bank, and using this object reference, Using this object reference, I can call all the methods. For example, open account, abstract methods, you see, which are implemented in the child class. Open account, deposit money, HDFC dot transfer money, HDFC dot transfer money, HDFC dot withdraw money. But you see, I'm not using this object reference to access this constants. Why? Can anyone say why I'm not using this object reference to access this constants of this interface? Can someone say what is the reason? I can also use HDFC dot account type one, account type. Why I'm
By
not
default, static.
Yes, they are final and static by default. If they are final and static by default, they don't belong to the class memory, I mean object memory. Okay, they are not belonging to the object memory, they belong to the class, the interface memory. So if I have to access this constants of this particular constant variables of this particular interface, what I have to do? I don't need to create an object, guys. Directly I can simply say system.out.println bank dot account type one. Okay, system.out.println bank dot account type 2. Like this you have to access, guys. Okay, this is a way to access the constants of the interface. But to access the abstract methods of the interface, you have to create an object for the child class. For accessing the constants of an interface, we can directly use the interface name dot the constant name. Okay, but to access the implemented abstract methods or overridden implemented abstract methods in the child classes, right? For that, you have to create an object for the child class of that particular interface, and using that object reference of the child class, you have to access them. Clear? Everyone clear? Interface name. This is it's not class dot. It's interface. Madhuri, it's not class dot variable. It's interface name dot constant. Interface name dot constant. Okay.
Yeah. Okay, Kiran.
Just because small things, right? It will give a different meaning. Okay, that's the reason. You have to say this is an interface name dot constant name. Interface name dot this particular constants belong to the interface memory. That's the reason we have to call them using the interface name. You don't have to create the objects for the interface. If you try also, you cannot create because you will get a compiler error saying that cannot instantiate the interface. Okay, you have to create an object for the child classes. And there is one kind of situation where you can also do something like this. That is new. You can create an object for the HDFC bank child class and assign that to the variable of the parent interface. Bank is equal to, like this you can write, that's okay. Okay, because interface is a parent, right? You can do that. Okay, you can create an object for the child class and assign to the variable of the parent interface is okay. So now you can do the same thing. Bank dot open account, bank dot deposit money, bank dot transfer money. Yesterday also I covered this with the abstract methods, abstract classes, right? Same concept I explained yesterday. Okay, the same concept I'm explaining today also with the interfaces also. Okay, you can only create a variable, declare a variable for the bank interface, but you cannot create an object for the interface. You can only declare the variable for the interface. You have to create you can create the object for the child classes which are implementing the interfaces, but you cannot create directly an object for the bank interface. You can only create a variable and define that variable with bank interface. To that bank interface, we can assign this object of the child class. Okay, that is possible.
Hello.
Yes, Ram is asking me a question here in the chat box. Can we make child methods as static? Child methods means what? What are the child methods? Ram, what do you mean by child methods?
So like here it is it is implementing bank methods, right? This
Yes.
yeah, so like can we make these methods as a static so that we can directly access without using objects?
Yesterday also we discussed on this, right? We can make that,
Yeah.
but it's not a good idea, we thought, right? But these are abstract methods. Abstract methods, you see in interface, all the methods are abstract methods. Abstract methods cannot be static, right?
Static.
They cannot be. Same thing that I think you have asked me the question yesterday, right? With abstract classes.
Yeah, yeah. So I was
Since it is not possible there, means it's not possible here also.
okay, thank you.
Same thing. Okay, all the methods inside the normal methods inside the interfaces are abstract methods and they cannot be static type. Okay, at least in the abstract classes we have some abstract methods and non-abstract methods. Non-abstract methods can be static, but abstract methods cannot be static. So hence here also the same thing. Okay, yeah. Any other questions? Any other questions, guys? Okay.
Hello.
Yes, Rakesh.
Bank dot we also access account type if we write here. After bank is equal to new HDFC Bank here.
Yeah, we can do that. Say that's okay. That's okay. We can do that. System.out.println. It's not required for you to create an object actually. There's no need of creating an object to access this constants of this interface because they are static final type. So already I did this here, right? The same thing you can copy paste if you want. Okay. There's no difference. Whether you create an object for the child class assigned to the variable of the parent interface or whether you create an object, there's no need of creating an object at all. Okay, to access this constant, there's no need of creating an object, so you don't have to worry about whether we can access or not. Okay, directly if you want to access the constants of the interface, you have to use a interface name dot constant name, interface name dot constant name. Okay, instead interface name dot constant name. It's not related to whether what type of objects you are creating, how you are creating. It doesn't matter. Okay, if you are accessing constants of an interface, you can either use the interface name or you can even use a child class name also. Child class name dot account type one, because these constants will be inherited by the child class also. So when they are inherited into the child class, these constants will become will belong to the class memory. Okay, will belong to the class memory. You can simply say in place of the bank, you can also say HDFC bank dot account type one, HDFC bank dot account type two. Also you can say that's okay. Okay, both are fine because they are inherited and they belong to either the interface memory. When they are inherited, they belong to the class memory. Okay, so and there will be static final type by default, so you have to either use a interface name. General better way is to use the interface name, guys. Okay, better way is to use the interface name. Okay, why to again inherit and use that, right? There no one will use like that, even though there's a possibility. It's not required for you to use the HDFC bank dot account type one, HDFC bank dot account type two. It's not required. Directly bank dot account type one, bank dot account type two, you have to access. That is a proper way. Okay, so fine. Any other questions? Constants means anything whose value cannot be updatable. That is constant. Okay, that is nothing but a constant, guys. Okay, that is nothing but a constant. Constant means whose value cannot be updatable. Variable means whose value can be updated. When a particular variable becomes a constant, when you mention final type. Static means it belongs to the interface memory or class memory, and you can access them using the class or interface name. Okay, that is what is static. Clear? Sonali, clear? Constant versus static. You see, there is a, you don't have to compare constant versus static here. Basically, that's not the right way of comparing. You should not be comparing constant versus static. Constants means whose value. Constants means whose value
Hello, so
cannot be updatable. Yes.
so my question was both are treated like static. I mean, we have to call it from the interface name.
No, it's not like
That's why
that.
I'm asking.
For example, if you create a variable inside a class or something, and if you make it static, for example, okay, if you make it static, what is the use of static? It belongs to the class memory or interface memory is a static, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
It doesn't mean it is a constant. You can update the value still. You can say bank dot account type one, you can update the value from savings to current. Okay, you can do that. Okay, in case of static. But if you say constant, when you say it is a constant, when it is a final modifier specified, right, it becomes a constant. Okay, when you specify static, it not become a constant. It belongs to the bank memory or bank memory or interface memory and class memory or interface memory static. Okay, whereas final means it will make it constant. That particular variable will get converted to constant, which need to be initialized in the same line, and its value cannot be updatable. That's what is constant. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Ease of access will happen with the help of static, whereas updating the value, restricting the updating of the value of that particular variable to make it constant will happen with the help of final. Okay, final variables are nothing but constant. Simple words. Otherwise,
Yes, sir.
okay, clear?
Clear, sir.
Okay, great. Any other questions, guys? Any other questions? Static means it belongs, that particular variable belongs to the variable or constant belongs to the class or interface memory, which is a common memory. Okay, it doesn't belong to the object memory. Well, you can create any number of objects for this HDFC bank and all, right? It doesn't belong to the object memory, rather it belongs to the class memory or interface memory. Is nothing but static. Okay, common stuff. And you can access the static variables or static constants by using the class name or interface name in which they are created. Okay, there's another thing about static, but constant is nothing but when you specify a particular variable with final modifier, that variable actually gets converted into a constant whose value cannot be updatable. Okay, clear now? If it is clear for you, just type C in the chat box, guys, the difference between. Okay, Satya, what is your question? Satya, what is your question? Use of interface reference means what? You want to know the purpose of the interface, Satya? What? That's what your question is? Or is that any different question? Satya, what is your question? I'm not getting your question.
Here actually we were using bank interface as a reference variable, right? While creating the object. So what is
This
the
one?
difference? I
This
just
one?
wanted to confirm again. In the demo class,
Hmm.
we have created two objects. One using with the same child class.
Okay. What will happen
Reference
if you
and
create an object
with
for
the
the child
interface.
class and assign to the variable of the parent interface? What is the use you are saying?
Yes. I mean difference. I
I
just
covered
wanted
the
to
previous
reconfirm.
session that I covered already in the one of the previous sessions during the inheritance
Yes,
concept I covered. Okay.
classes. Yes.
Yes, you can either create an object for the child class and assign to the variable of the parent classes, or you can create an object for the child class and assign to the variable of the parent interfaces. Okay, both are possible in Java. And what is the purpose? I already explained the advantage of doing that in the one of the previous session known as inheritance. There is a concept known as inheritance where I covered that. Okay, you can refer to that topic because the explanation is kind of lengthy there. I cannot explain that again. So
Yeah.
have you watched that session already, Satya? Like, or you are?
Yes. I have watched it. I'll just
Yeah.
recheck.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
I thought if there is any difference with respect to interface and
Generally, people either
but
create like
that-
this. The main difference is like, the common, all the child class objects can be stored into the variable of the parent interface. Okay. I covered that in detail there. That's the reason I'm asking
Yes.
you. For example, there is some animal and there is a cat, there is a dog. The object of the dog, object of the cat can be assigned to the variable of the animal interface.
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
That kind of.
I do remember that. But the interface, if there is any difference with interface, is what I just wanted to confirm.
What is that last line?
I mean, at that time, in the last session, with respect to inheritance, we have discussed regarding the class, right? So here it is.
No
If there is
difference. No
interface,
difference. Same thing again here also. Whatever that with the class, right? Same thing with the interface also. Same thing. Okay. No difference at all. The same properties, same stuff. Okay. No changes. Okay.
Yeah, got it. Clear. Thank you.
Okay. Great. Okay. Then, so I'll run this code and see what is happening, whether it is working or not, whether it is getting the account types and savings and current account opened in HDFC, amount deposited into HDFC Bank, money transferred from HDFC Bank, amount withdrawn from HDFC Bank, account opened in HDFC Bank, amount deposited. Okay, things are working fine properly. Things are working fine. Now, next thing is you see to this particular interface, how many child classes I have to create? Is there any limit for that? How many child classes I have to create? Is there any limit for the interface? No, right? I can create any number of child classes. I can create one more child class. For example, here I can create one more separate file I can create, no problem. Okay, either in the same Java file I can create or in the separate Java file also create. Okay, ICICI Bank. Okay, click on finish. I want to make this ICICI Bank. Implements or extends, guys. Interface. Implements or extends. I have to write implements or extends. Implements you have to write implements bank interface. Okay, bank interface. Okay, again it is asking me to override the unimplemented methods, implement all the abstract methods of the parent interface. It is saying add. You see, this is a shortcut. If you don't want to take a lot of time and write by yourself all these methods, simply hover the mouse and say add unimplemented methods. What was the other option we are getting? Either we can implement all the methods, or other option is like I have to make this particular class as abstract. This concept I already covered yesterday, right? Abstract classes. If you want to go with partial implementation, you can write the abstract classes. Again, you have to create one more child class for this ICICI Bank. to implement the inherited abstract methods of the parent class, like that. Okay, so like that. So it's better not same concept, guys. Same abstract classes, right? The child class has to implement. Otherwise, child class has to become which type? The child class has to become which type? Abstract type. Okay, if the child class of the interface is not implementing all the abstract methods of the interface, we have to make the child class as abstract type. The same thing I explained in the yesterday session. I don't want to repeat that. Okay, the same concept here. Okay, but I'll implement all the methods for now because we are ahead of that. So here I'll write a simple different print statement. Here implementation will be different, guys. Okay, in case of HDFC Bank, how the HDFC Bank has implemented the this particular abstract methods of the interface. It said that account opened in which bank? HDFC Bank. Amount deposited in which bank? HDFC Bank, it said. Amount withdrawn from HDFC Bank, it said. Money transferred from HDFC Bank. But in case of ICICI Bank, will it implement the same code of HDFC Bank, or will it have its own implementation? ICICI Bank implementation will be there. How the implementation will be there? Implementation will be definitely different, but different from the HDFC Bank. Okay, the way account opening process will differ from account opening process of ICICI Bank will differ from the account opening process of the HDFC Bank. Account opening process of the ICICI Bank will differ from the account opening process of the HDFC Bank. Here I'll write account. We have to write account opened in HDFC Bank. No, right? We have to write account. Just for sample, I will be writing account opened in ICICI Bank. I'll write. Okay, ICICI Bank, different bank. Okay. Yes. Here it has its own implementation. That's the beauty of the inheritance, all those stuff. Okay. Amount withdrawn from ICICI Bank. Then here system.out.println amount transferred from ICICI Bank. Amount transferred from ICICI Bank. Here I'll write down system.out.println amount withdrawn from ICICI Bank. Like that, for every bank has its own implementation. Okay, RBI will only decide the guidelines. Okay, just define the guidelines here in the interface. All the classes which are implementing this interface have to implement their own implementation of the abstract methods of this particular parent interface. Okay, like that ICICI Bank has its own implementation. Like that, how many banks are there in India, guys? Let's Google search. How many banks are there in India? How many banks are there in India which are governed by RBI authority or organization, whatever. List of banks in India which are RBI. RBI is giving the list of banks here, you see. State Bank of India, Axis Bank, a lot of banks. Otherwise, I would like to get a simple, straightforward answer. How many banks are in India under RBI? 12 public sector banks are there, and list of all public and private sector banks in India. 12 are there. Let's assume that, which is never okay. So list of banks in India. Let's go there and see. You see, these are the list of banks, guys. Okay. Public sector, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 public sector banks, which are government run banks. Private sector banks are Axis 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21. 21 plus 12. 21 plus 12. It's all about 33. Total 33 are there for now. Tomorrow more banks may come into picture. Total 33 banks are there. Now, for example, if I create like this, understand that for every bank that is there in India, which is following the rules and regulations of bank interface, which is created by RBI. Okay, if I create separate Java file, for example, for HDFC Bank separate Java file, for ICICI separate Java file. Okay, for IDFC Bank another Java file. Okay, IDBI another Java file. Okay, and to implement all the abstract methods, okay, of the parent interface known as bank interface, I can create 33 separate classes. Can I create, yes or no, guys? Okay, in this example, can I have to create 33 classes, yes or no? Since there are 33 banks in India, they have to create 33 classes. Yes or no? Yes or no, guys? 33 classes I have to create. Okay. All these 33 classes will become the child classes of the bank interfaces where RBI guidelines are there in the bank interface. All the 33 classes of the different banks have to have their own class and they have to implement the abstract methods of the parent interface. That's fine. All good so far. But the problem here is tomorrow a new bank comes or tomorrow whatever the number of banks are there. Let's say I created 33 banks. Assume that guys, assume that for whatever today is there, 33 banks are there, right? 33 banks are there. Okay. 33 banks or for 33 banks, I created 33 child classes for bank interface. Now tomorrow RBI comes with a new guideline. What it will do, guys? What the RBI will do? If it comes with the new guideline, what the RBI will do? Where the RBI will do the changes? It will go to individual 33 banks and do the changes, or it will go to which file and do the changes? Where the RBI will do the changes?
Parent class.
Parent interface. What is a parent interface in our example? RBI will do the changes in the bank interface, bank parent interface. Okay. Bank interface, it will do the changes. For example, RBI has come up with a new policy, public void, okay, attach Aadhaar with PAN. Some new rule came. Okay, the people only can contain the bank accounts if they are some functionality bank should implement where people can go and attach Aadhaar with PAN card. Okay, PAN card in India. Let's assume that this is the case. They came with a new feature. What happens the moment I save all? What is happening, guys? Error is coming with earlier error is not there in HDFC Bank. You see, if I comment this one, if the RBI has not added this new method as a new guideline, you see no error is there in the HDFC Bank, and if I say one, no error is in the ICICI Bank. The moment RBI introduces a new feature here, what is happening? New abstract method. You see, error is coming. Why? All the child classes, all the 33 child classes, all the 33 bank child classes that are implementing the bank interface have to be updated, yes or no? Have to be updated, yes or no? If there is small change in the bank interface, all the 33 child classes of the banks which are implementing the bank interface have to be updated, yes or no? Or this particular method, abstract methods need to be implemented. Assume that there are 1,000 such kind of child classes. Assume that in real time there are 1,000 child classes which are implementing a single interface. Let's assume. In the single interface, a small change happened. Then I have to go to this 1,000 child classes and update them or not. Whatever the updated thing here is there, I have to implement them or not in the 1,000 child classes. Here 33 means only we are getting a problem, right? I have to go to each and every bank. Like here HDFC Bank, I have to go and create an abstract overridden method or implemented method for this abstract method in the HDFC Bank. Error will be gone. Then I have to go to the ICICI Bank. In the ICICI Bank, I have to create one more method saying attach, okay, Aadhaar and PAN here also. Like that, not only HDFC, ICICI Bank, all the remaining 31 banks also. After 2 banks minus 31 banks, remaining 31 bank class also, I have to go and implement this particular new guideline given by the RBI, right? Is that a hectic process, yes or no? Is that a hectic process, yes or no? For 33 only it's hectic. But just imagine about 1,000 classes. Just imagine about 1,000 child classes. For 33, at least we can do it. For 1,000 means a small change in the interface will give errors in the child classes of this interface. To avoid this, in case of very big list of classes implementing the interface, and after a long period of time, a small change happened to the parent interface, we have to go to all the child classes, thousands of child classes, and update the child classes, which is a hectic process, and the errors keep coming in the child classes which are implementing the interface because of that. So to overcome this, latest versions of Java or latest versions of Java has introduced something known as static and default methods. What are the type of methods they have introduced to overcome this problem? What are the type of the methods they have introduced? Tell me, guys. Static and default methods. As per the static and default methods, after a long period of time, let's say a particular interface is introducing a new functionality, and that particular interface is implemented by good number of child classes. In that case, instead of creating an abstract method. Latest version of Java is giving a facility where you can either create default void, default public void, attach Aadhaar and PAN, let's say Aadhaar and PAN. You see, can it contain a method body here? Can the default method can contain the method body? Whatever the method I mentioned with the default keyword, you see generally in modifiers, default keyword will not be there. Generally, if you talk about the previous topic, that is modifiers, public keyword will be there, private keyword will be there, protected keyword will be there, but default modifier keyword will be there, yes or no? In case of modifiers, default modifier keyword will be there. The answer is no, default modifier keyword will not be there. But when you are creating a method, okay, inside the interface where you don't want the child classes of this interface to pay the headache, okay? Rather, what the interface will do is, since there are thousands of child classes which are implementing this interface, if this new feature is introduced in the abstract model, all the child classes will get an error, okay? Because they're implementing the interface. In the interface, the changes happen. All the 1,000 child classes have to update them, okay? Have to modify their code. So to overcome that, Java has introduced in the latest versions of Java, default methods got introduced. A keyword known as default keyword. This is not a modifier, it's a default keyword, guys, okay? Before the method that you're creating inside the interface, if you want the implementation to happen, to overcome this kind of problem where thousands of classes are implementing the interface and suddenly a new method comes, and that will introduce errors. To avoid the introduction of errors to the child classes, Java has introduced a concept known as implementation of the methods inside the interface. Only in this case, we have to implement, guys. Interfaces are still about the full abstraction only. Okay, they encourage the full abstraction, that is zero implementation. But for a long period of time, what happens is the number of classes which are implementing the interface will become very big. That is thousands of classes it may become, and a small change in the interface, the errors will come into the child classes. To overcome that problem, we can implement a method in the interface itself like this. Instead of just giving a guideline, only very rare cases we have to use this kind of methods which can be implemented. That method should be, it's not a normal method, guys, it's a default method. Everyone type in the chat box, it is a default method. Which type of method it is? Default method it is. Okay, it's a default method. Everyone type, it is a default method, can contain the method body inside the interface. And here I can implement this. Okay, Aadhaar and PAN got attached. Okay, got attached. Now see, guys, whether I have to save all. Now errors are going to the HDFC bank class or ICICI bank or remaining 33 child classes is going. Error is not going there. Okay, error is not going there. Okay, error is not going there. Okay, error is not going to the child classes because the parent class has, okay, the parent interface has implemented the method itself. It's not a normal method. It can contain the method body because this is a default method. There's one more way, is like public static keyword also you can give. The static methods also can be there. Okay, either it can be default or static methods. Okay, we can understand more about this default and static methods and what are the difference here from ChatGPT. Okay, difference between static and default methods in an, give me a second, guys. Difference between static and default methods. Difference between static and default methods in an interface. Okay. So what is the different purpose this default and static methods inside an interface are serving? What is the difference between them? Both the things can have the implementation. For example, either default you write, or in place of the default, you can also write static also. Okay. In place of default, you can also write static. Okay. You can also mention static. They can have the implementation, but the purpose is same. High level purpose is same, where without affecting the child classes, thousands of child classes, if you want to implement the particular method in the parent interface, then we generally go with this process. But it's not not to make the full abstraction as full abstraction as partial abstraction. That's not the intention, guys. Intention is different. Okay, still the intention is same. Interfaces intention is all about full abstraction or zero implementation, but still problems will come where number of classes which are implementing the interface becomes bigger. Okay, and suddenly the parent interface comes up with a new method, abstract method. Then all the child classes have to implement that. To overcome that problem, this kind of default and static methods have been introduced inside the interface in the latest versions of Java. But that the intention is not to break the full abstraction concept. Full abstraction concept is still there, but we have to carefully use the static and default methods whenever needed. Okay. Instance methods, default methods are instance methods, meaning they can be called on instance of the class that implement the interface. Whereas, let's see what is the conclusion. Okay. Default methods are called on instances of the implementing the classes, while static methods are called on the interface itself. Okay. If you make that particular method static, right, you can call the methods using the bank interface name, bank dot attach other pan, you can say. Okay. Default method, how to access this default method? Let's try to access here. HDFC bank, HDFC dot attach other pan, I can say here. Okay. But if I make this static, can I say something like this? Bank dot attach other pan, it's not coming, right? The moment I make this default as static here, then instead of using object reference, I will use bank dot attach like this. Okay. In which way you want to access? Okay. In which way you want to access? This is default methods or static methods. Static methods can be accessed using the bank interface name, whereas default methods can be accessed using the object reference of the child class, which is implementing the interface. Okay. That's the only difference, guys, they are saying for now. Okay. You can create one more interface, one more method here, static, public, void. Any other thing about RBI guideline that has come recently apart from attaching the other end pad? And okay, new taxation or something I'll write here. New taxation, some method I'll create. Okay, system.out.println implementing new taxation. Okay, just I'll write like this. Okay, this is static method, this is a default method. Okay, both can have the method body, and to access the static methods, we have to use the interface name, bank dot new taxation. But to access the default method, we have to use object reference of the class, child class, which is inheriting this particular method of the interface. Okay, like that. So invocation is different. Default methods are inherited, can be overridden by the implementing the classes, whereas static methods are not inherited and cannot be overridden. If you try to inherit can you override this particular method, static method? Let's see. We cannot override, they are saying. Public void, write down override, I'll say. I'm getting an error. Okay, overriding is not possible. Overriding is not possible, guys. Okay, we can only inherit the default methods, whereas static methods cannot be overridden. Okay, no, that is one thing. Yes, next one is default methods enable adding new methods to interface without breaking the existing implementation, while static methods are for utility functions that do not depend on the instance data. Okay, so the main thing, whenever there are thousands of child classes and the interface has to come up with a new functionality, then we generally go with the default methods, guys. But to create some additional utility methods containing some implementation in the bank interface with a different purpose, we create the static methods. Okay, static methods are for accessing using the bank interface, like constants, right? We have to access them using the name of the interface, and you can have any number of static methods inside the interface. But this one, default methods are introduced in Java as part of interfaces to solve this purpose, where tomorrow there is an interface, and there are thousands of classes which are implementing this interface. There are thousands of classes which are implementing this interface. All these classes are implementing this interface. Let's assume all these classes are implementing, thousands of classes are implementing this interface. A new functionality comes means all the child classes have to override the particular abstract methods. To overcome that, what is the concept that got introduced as part of implementing that? Default methods. Okay, to overcome this problem, default methods got introduced in interface, but static methods are not this for this purpose. Static methods are for creating the utility methods for the interfaces itself. If you want to create some implemented utility methods of an interface, okay, then we can go with the static methods, okay, which can have the implementation. Normal methods will not have the method body inside the interface. Default methods can have the method body. The reason behind that is when the number of classes which are implementing the interface becomes bigger in count, then if you want to, if you don't want to override that particular method in the, I mean, if you don't want to go with this process of creating an overridden method implementation of that particular method newly introduced in the parent interface can itself create a default method with the implementation where child classes don't have to, all the thousands of child classes don't have to do the work again. Okay, that's the main purpose of the default methods. Apart from that, static methods in the interface also can contain the implementation. The purpose of the static methods is to create the utility methods using the interface. If you want to call such kind of methods instead of creating implementation in the HDFC bank or ICICI bank, you only want to implement that particular method in the bank interface, then you can go with the static methods which belong to the bank interface. Okay, some specific methods belonging to the bank interface you can create it using the static modifier. The default methods are the methods to avoid this multiple child classes implementing this abstract method. If you want to overcome that problem, we generally go with the default methods. Clear everyone? Clear everyone why default methods and why static methods is clear for you, which can have the implementation in the interface is clear for you, which got introduced in the latest versions of Java is clear for you. Guys, everyone clear? Yes, great.
Arun, I have a doubt.
Yes.
So the sole purpose of creating this interface was to impose the restrictions on all the child classes to implement all the unimplemented methods, right? But
Yes.
by introducing this default and static,
Only
those
default.
child classes are not restricted to utilize those methods. So there could be some key methods also that are available in the or introduced in the interface which child classes
You
have
can still
not
override it. You
used it,
see,
right?
it's you are in here, Ashish. You have to understand something like your default methods can be overridden. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You have to understand that default methods can be overridden. If the, for example, HDFC bank want a default a different way of attaching the Aadhaar card to the PAN card, right? It can override it. There's no restriction there. Okay, but it's not compulsory. Earlier it was compulsory. If there are abstract methods, right, you'll get an error here, right? But after thousands of classes, child classes coming for the interface, right, it's not mandatory. Immediately, it's not important for them to implement the interface. Rather, they can override it whenever they want. The child classes can override whenever they want. Whatever the child classes are, whatever the bank child classes, right? They can override whenever they. This kind of flexibility is there in the latest versions of Java, not in the old version of Java.
Okay.
Clear, na, Ashish?
Yeah, I mean, I was clear about that, the new concept and what is the benefit of it. But the question I was having is like, there might be a chance, like, suppose you have introduced one important methods in interface as a default or static method, but
Okay.
somehow that child classes did not implemented it just because of it was a default or a static method. So
Yes.
earlier they were restricted to utilize all the unimplemented methods.
Yes,
But in
correct.
this case, they might miss some important features that has been introduced in interface. I mean, from an end user perspective, I'm talking.
Yes, yes, correct.
So that was my
So,
question. Like,
simple thing is that in real time, these concepts are not that much important for software tester. But if you think in the shoes of the developers, right? Developers have the flexibility here. Okay.
yeah, correct.
Developers have the flexibility here. In whatever the child classes they want to implement this default method, right? They know. Okay. So they will simply introduce in the parent interface, and then wherever they want to override the default method, they can override. But static methods cannot be overridden. That we have seen that here, right? Static methods cannot be overridden. They are like utility methods, some extra utility methods of the bank interface, okay, that they have introduced. The purpose of the static is very different. Okay, this is not for the child classes. This is for the parent interface only. Some utility methods of the parent interface, if you want to use, you can go with the static. Otherwise, generally, to overcome the concept of this, child classes, thousands of child classes, instead of they have to for every small change they have to go and do that over a period of time. I'm saying not initially. Initially, we generally don't create the default methods initially in the initial creation of the interface and initial creation of the child classes, right? All the methods will be abstract by default. But over a period of time, when the code reaches very high level, now developers will face a problem. A small method they will introduce here, all the 1,000 classes they have to go and implement the method. But if the developers have an idea like, what if I'll implement this particular method in the interface only. So child classes don't have to implement. They will anyhow inherit if required. If the developer has an idea what the developer will do, instead of implementing in the child classes, developer will implement that in the parent interface only. Got it? It's the flexibility
yes,
given
yes.
to the developer. Simple. Okay.
Yeah.
How they want to go.
Okay.
It's not forcible restriction. It's a flexibility that Java is giving the latest versions of Java. Okay. For this kind of stuff to the developers again. Developers have to take the call here, okay, according to the design or practices or whatever they follow, right? If it is very important, developers will implement overridden method immediately. Otherwise, they'll create a default method. If it is not required to be implemented for every class, child class, they'll simply create a parent class method and make it default, and the headache is gone. Okay. Here Java is giving the, after seeing a lot of problems, right, Java has come up with this solution, okay, due to some XYZ reasons. The developers have, they are giving the flexibility to the developers rather than they restricting it from their side. Okay, that's what is Java is doing now. Okay, after getting a lot of feedback, they may have done this. Okay. Okay, so that's the thing, guys. That's the thing that I want to cover as part of today's session. I think you have learned something new from today's session, but this much of knowledge is not required for Selenium Java automation. But in despite of that, I wanted to cover so that you will understand a lot. But you just need to understand what is an interface, what does an interface contain. Okay, that much is more than enough, guys. Okay, abstract methods it will contain by default, and all the, but coming to the interviews, right, they may ask you this kind of questions. That's the reason I have to cover this. Otherwise, as part of Selenium automation, I don't have to cover all this stuff. Okay. Which keyword we have to use for making a child class implement the parent interface. Okay. That I covered. And objects cannot be created for neither an interface nor abstract classes, that we have seen that. Okay. Then, okay, that's it, guys. That's it. That's what I wanted to cover today. So with this, we completed this notes. Sorry, with this particular node, that is session 8 node for modifiers and interface is completed. Hope you got some idea. In our real time also, during Selenium Java automation, will come with the different type of interfaces, different type of classes, and here and there. Since we use them, right, we should have some basic knowledge. Without basic knowledge, if you are using some classes, right, it won't be a good thing. Okay. So that's the reason I have to explain this interfaces concept. Tomorrow, guys, tomorrow we are going to start with Selenium for automation. For a few sessions, Selenium for automation will be there. After that, again, we'll cover some remaining Java concepts. Then we'll go for the again remaining concepts of Selenium again. Okay, this is how we are planning. Next session will be on Selenium automation. Selenium for automation will start tomorrow. Okay, few sessions, few upcoming sessions will be on Selenium for automation. Okay, so till June 2nd, till June 3rd or something else, till June 3rd or June 4th, right? I'll not take in-depth sessions. This much amount of content only I'll deliver. Okay. But after the June 4th, right, I will be more serious and will go in depth. Okay. For every topic will take a lot of time, and I'll cover in depth. Okay. Again. Okay. Because timing is the issue, guys. Okay. I'm at a different location, so I cannot take so much of time here. Okay. So some personal works are there till June 2nd. After June 2nd or 3rd, right, we'll go with the actual, we'll cover a lot of stuff on a single sessions. Okay. But till June 2nd or 3rd, right, I'll be going in a slow manner like this. Today only interface I covered. Yesterday only abstract classes and abstraction hoops concept I covered. Tomorrow I'll cover few things about Selenium for automation. Day after tomorrow, some few comments of Selenium for automation. Okay, I'll divide that until June 3rd. This will be a process. After June 3rd, right, we'll go with the detailed and depth sessions again. Okay, fine, guys. So any other questions, guys, regarding the interfaces? I covered in depth only, guys.
Sir,
I covered the interface in depth, but whatever you want to know is not that much really required. Okay. Yeah. Tell me, guys.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yes, please.
In the code section, right side, 17th line.
17th line, right?
Yeah. Sir, it's 17 below
17th
16.
line is this one. Yes, correct.
So it's a object, object creation, no, sir?
No, object you are creating for the child class, but assigning to the variable of the parent interface. Only declaration
Okay.
for a variable.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Got it, sir. Yeah.
Directly, you cannot say new bank. Okay, that's not possible. You would say
Okay,
new HDFC bank and assign that object to the variable of the parent interface or parent.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Anything is possible.
Clear, sir.
Yeah, any other questions? Guys, will become more serious after June 4th, as I mentioned. Till June 4th, just be like this. Okay. We'll go slow and steady. Okay. After, June 4th, we'll be very serious again. Okay. We'll come into the form again, where the topics will be covered in a more aggressive manner and, more detailed manner, and more content will be shared in a single day or something like that. Okay. Till then, you have a lot of time. Practice whatever. If you have not completed something, right, try to go through the previous videos and sessions and be ready for the June 4 after sessions. Okay, you have a lot of time there till then. Okay, fine. I'll give you some breaks also, guys. Okay, I'll give you some breaks also. Maybe I'll not be available on Saturday. Anyhow, will not be there. Sunday, nothing like that. Okay, so I'll be there. So this month it's May 31st, Friday, right? Till 31st, I'll take, no problem. Okay, this weekdays we'll have the sessions, no problem. Saturday, Sunday, anyhow, we are not having any sessions, right? These days, no problem. Again, I'll try to take it on 3rd. Okay, there will not be any changes for your batch, anyhow. Okay, but from 3rd or 4th, right, will become more serious. That's what I can say. Fine. Any other questions for batch 1? There will be some gaps. I have to, I'll not take any sessions on some Sunday or something. Okay, Saturday or Sunday. I'll plan that. Okay. But for batch 2, it's same thing. Okay, will not be any changes. Okay, any other questions, guys? If it is clear, just type C in the chat box. If everyone is clear and no questions, just type C in the chat box. If you have any questions, you can ask me. Final call. Okay, fine. Great. Okay, guys, that's all for today then. We'll meet tomorrow at the same time at 8 p.m. IST, and we'll continue with Selenium 4 automation. Will start tomorrow. Okay, I'll also message in the WhatsApp group here. Tomorrow at 8 p.m. IST for batch 2. Selenium 4 sessions will start. Okay, I just message it there so that you can remember that. Fine, guys, that's all for today. See you tomorrow again at the same time. Bye everyone. Bye everyone. See you.